All right. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Everyone can hear me? Mike, I sound good?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, good. Well, welcome back, everybody. God, the last time I did this, I don't remember. Oh, we had Crazy Susan. So anyway, welcome back. I'm pretty excited about today's show. For those of you who have been following on Twitter, we have added a new guest host, at Madlu. Jen, are you there? You can say hello.
Hello.
Eli, you're here, correct?
How's it hanging?
How you doing, brother? And Mike will be
Good. How
speaking
you
today.
doing?
Jeffrey is out getting plastered. It is St. Patty's Day, so we will not have the joyous Jeffrey call. He may call in, but for the most part, it's just the three of us. So I'm pretty excited. For those of you who don't follow Jen on Twitter, again, her Twitter name is @Madlu, and those of you that do follow know that her and I have quite a history. I think that would be fair to say. Is that fair to say?
It's a virtual history, but yes.
It is. Yes, we've never met, nor are we going to, because I'd have to pry her off me because she's completely excessively in love with me, which is totally normal. No one judge you. It's natural. It happens. But otherwise, as long as we keep it virtual, I think we have a good thing going. What people don't know about Jen is I've talked a lot about how I used to be on AM radio, and Eli and I used to do a show, and long story short, I'm here on the internet, and it was not my choice. I'm very happy to be on Unscripted. Mike and Jeff are incredible, but this was basically where I landed after I was fired. And the reason I was fired, and we're not going to talk about it today, don't worry, there's no feminist stuff today. But the reason I was fired, as we all know now, was a feminist debate. Well, Jen, my new co-host, was one of the leading morons that I fought against. Me and Jen go way back. She was, first it was just this horde of psychos, and I was making the point, and then this one psycho, Madlu, was like the cream of the crop, rose to the top in insanity and inanity. I rhymed those. And we fought for quite some time. Is that fair to say, Jen?
Well, that we fought, yes, fair to say.
You're saying you're not a feminist? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not a feminist, not to the true meaning of the word, no.
Okay, but you and I did. You were leading the charge. You were there.
I felt like you were a sexist, yes.
Okay, and okay, fine, fair enough. But anyway, so long story short, this woman who's now my co-host, if it works out, this could be my co-host for indefinitely. Is the reason I got fired off AM radio. Just want to.
You're welcome, AM radio.
Yes. So last week she called in. We fight all the time, and I don't know what it was about her voice, or she just seemed logical. And I thought Jen would make a perfect complimentary host. So anyway, welcome, Jen. Welcome to the Jake Pentland Show.
Thank you. I'm very excited. So much I'm losing my voice now.
Yeah, you sound so excited.
I can't help it. I'm apathetic about everything. But on the inside, I'm really not.
Okay. So you're totally excited right now, right? Because you're talking to me.
Excited.
I'm like a hero of yours. Totally fair. Hey, I want to tell you, I don't know if you are nervous, but this is kind of weird. I mean, you've been plucked from obscurity into more obscurity, and you probably weren't expecting this. Like, hey, when you called in last week, you weren't expecting me to ask you to co-host. So I imagine you're probably nervous. I'm nervous every time we do the show. So I just want to say, don't worry. Just be yourself. It's not a big deal. There literally, I've looked at the numbers. There are only 9 total listeners that listens to this show. 8 of them follow us on Twitter, so they already know you. And whoever the extra guy is, probably just some guy randomly looking for porn that stumbled upon here, and he'll probably tune out as soon as we start talking. So no need to be nervous, okay?
Perfect.
So I think, we've talked about, we're going to talk about Ravi and the Rutgers, and it's a heated topic, and I definitely want to get into that, but I think it's asking a lot of you in your first show to call in where you're a little nervous, and then as to have this discussion that is very, very basically a really hot button issue. I mean, the verdict came yesterday, so I'm going to withhold talking about this for a few minutes, and I just want to take this time to. I don't want to make it sound like an interview, but I would like to introduce you a little bit better because nobody really knows much about you, as far as I know. You're pretty
literally nobody.
You're fairly private. I mean, your picture. You finally put your picture, like your actual picture, up with your kids, I think, at one point. But there was a time where you had when you were the crazy feminist I was battling, you had some weird wig and some stupid hat, and you look like
stupid hat. We were doing glow wrestling.
You look like one of the Marx Brothers, the one that's so you're obviously very private. So, but we're going to have these debates and these conversations all the time. I think it's fair that our audience gets to know you a little bit. So,
All right.
I don't lead too much into anything. You and I have only really talked one other time off the air. But, tell me a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, first off, I have to change names to protect innocent people, and no one in my life is innocent, so no names will be changed. What do you want to know about? You want to know about the day I was born?
No. Let's say you're married. You have 2 kids.
I'm married. I'm married to a cop, so that is.
I think that's
police officer.
Okay. And we don't have to say where you live, obviously.
Right. And it's my whole life. I pretty much did drugs. So marrying a cop is probably the most ironic thing that ever happened in my life.
I imagine married to a cop, you can no longer do drugs. Is that correct?
Yes, mostly. Yes.
So basically, or you know how to do them without being caught.
What's that plea? The 5th.
Exactly. Well, you're drug free. And
I am drug free. I can say that 100% right now. I am.
And so when you say you were on drugs, that I imagine many people listening will probably go, "What? That was kind of a weird thing to drop first thing." Was there a reason for drug use? I mean, were you a druggie, or were you just like a normal teenager like the rest of us?
No, I was a normal teenager. Okay. 13 years old, experimented with some marijuana, really liked it. I always described it as a roller coaster ride. Like I did it because it was fun. But it got me in a lot of trouble. Put a cigarette burn on my hand that landed me in my first rehab, basically, and I was a straight A student. So I ended up, by the end of it, sent away to Oklahoma for most of my adolescence.
Wait a minute, you burned yourself, or you were burned?
No, actually it was a smiley with a lighter. Someone saw it somewhere and told my mom and how serious it was, and that I was going to basically kill myself because I had a cigarette lighter burn on my hand. So tough love, I think, is what started it, that damn organization. Oh, don't get me started on mother. So anyway, so then you were placed in sort of like an adolescent rehab. Like my sister, for a lot of people don't know, I mean, my sisters are talked about it, so I'm not giving much away. But I was placed in one program for just 52 days, just myself. It was an hour-bound program. We'll talk about it later. But outside of me, just my 2 sisters, Jessica and Jenny, who are at Chunk Nugget, and the other one's Jenny Pentland, right? They were in a collection of 20 separate rehab facilities. And I hate to use the term rehab facilities because there wasn't really drug use. I mean, my sister Jessica, when she was 13, we went out trick-or-treating one night, and she threw her bag in the back of the car with her friends, and all you heard was glass jiggling. So my dad's ears pop up, and he's like, "What's that sound?" And unzip, and there's just like fit the scotch, fit the whiskey. She's 13. Right. She got busted. She also stole the car at one point with my parents, took the Jeep out. So I'm not going to say we were perfect angels, but we certainly weren't the kind of people that should be put into facilities. And at that time, probably at the same time, how old are you, Jen? 35, 70. I'm the same age as Jenny. Okay, so you were in the same sort of crazy time that we were, which is, like you said, you had the cigarette burn, our parents, and they had all these therapists and people that I hate, and I always go off on these types. Now they're the ones that are so anti-bullying and psycho. It's just like this collection of overprotective psychopaths, and they see this, and then they think, okay, this kid's got problems. So, long story short, these aren't rehab for drug use. These are like teen rehabilitation centers, basically to teach you how to function as an adult. Doesn't necessarily have to be drugs. Is that correct? Yes, but they really teach you how to do drugs. I think I have never been anywhere that taught me better ways to use and hide drugs than going to those places, because I was not a regular user. I was like, it's really hard to get pot at 13, so it was on occasion, and I happened to get caught because I wasn't super sneaky yet. Right. So you learn a lot about drugs in rehab. Sometime you were 13 to 18, you were in and out of these, is that correct? Basically, from 15 to about 16 and a half is when I was in long-term placement. It was about 20 months, actually, in Oklahoma. Okay. And basically, by the time I really had gotten far enough away from the craziness in our own home, I didn't want to come back. So the owners of that place took custody of me, and I went to a public school my last 2 years of, a year and a half of high school in Oklahoma. Okay. With like 25 people in my class. So when I talk about
things like the self-esteem movement or the psychiatric movement or this touchy-feely, put the kids in rehab kind of thing, you obviously have that in common with me. Sort of. I don't want to say disdain, but you understand it from the inside out, yes?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, this is the thing. I think it's important when we do this show on that people understand that you're not just some random Twitter follower that I found and we had an argument. I thought you were funny. I said to you on the phone last week that I felt like you and I were sort of cosmic siblings.
Yes. Maybe it's the love-hate.
It is, yeah. No, I mean, you're a complete moron, and I'll tell you that all the time. But I mean that in the nicest possible way. So my sisters, like I said, were in 20 different facilities, from time 13 to 18. So when I was growing up, I had sisters, and we were like a family hanging out at the dinner table. Then there was this period of like 5 or 6 years where they were gone, and the only time I could see my sisters was visiting them in these facilities. Now, I just want to reiterate, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I cannot tell you, like, when Jen says she learned how to do bad stuff, these aren't facilities with other, yuppie kids. A lot of these kids they're just hot messes. I mean, they're just like absolute, not just drug addicts. There are some that are schizophrenic or have serious problems. Jenny, I wish you would call in, but she told me a story one time. She shared a room with this girl that kept pooping on herself.
Oh, my God.
So, here you are, just this kid, you smoke a joint one time, and this was during that craze, which is why I fight about all the time. Our parents were trying to do the right thing, and you're put in a friggin' box with crazy people like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Right. And it gives you an interesting perspective. So that's some of Jen's history. One of the main things that I did want is I did find that, my mother and my stepmother were organizing an intervention on me last week. This is my theory. I could be wrong. But Becky, my stepmother, did sit me down and say, you really got to stop talking about matriarchy and feminism because it just sounds like you're fighting with your mother. And I got this idea, like, okay, I'm pretty consistent, I think, in Twitter and on the show where, I cannot stand morons of any color, of any gender, of any size. If you're a moron, I'm going to come after you. So I feel like, that's kind of my point and place on the show. So when my stepmother sent me down, my mother said I was out of control and we needed to go for a walk. She kept trying to invite me out to lunch. I know an intervention when I hear it. There's this prevailing theory that, I must just be this total woman hater or I just have some mommy problems. The truth is, whatever mommy problems I do have, I've been always honest about it. But I just really can't stand fools. So the best thing is with Jen, I think, one of the main reasons I've asked you here is because you're a female, I think you and me, you might be able to help me explain what I'm trying to say a little bit better, because I will admit, and I have admitted on the air before, that I do get lost and disorganized, and sometimes I'm reacting more emotionally than as logical and pragmatic as I'd like to think I am. And I've said many, many times that I really do think men and women are both equal but different. And they both have different strengths and different weaknesses, and together, I think they really can do great things together. So I've always kind of wanted a female co-host. I could never find one. Most of them were, 500 pounds and didn't like me very much.
You don't want to go the sexist route, but we are equal in many ways, but we are not treated equally. I think that's the point that, your mom and different people want to make, even myself, is that in the business world, in the political world, it's not equal. It's not even close to equal.
And I'm going to let you be the mouthpiece for that on another show, because we're going to stick away from that. But yes, I'm okay with being disagreed with. But what I'm trying to say here is, at one point it was me and just Eli, and Jeff and Mike would occasionally talk in, and there really was no female voice. And I do, no matter how much I try not to, gender and sexism is going to come up because, like I said in my very first show, I was born in 1978. And I grew up, you and I are talking about the psychiatric movement with kids being put in, but I also grew up in a post-feminist society, and I'm a male, and there's really nothing like it on the radio, honestly. There's no 30-something-year-old male talking to. Pretty much most of my followers are older women, and I feel like I have this great gift where I can tell you guys the perspective from a younger man, because a lot of the stuff when I do argue, you're talking about how it was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, I totally understand, but I was raised by women. I'm very sensitive to the movement, and I think it's an interesting perspective. So, yes, it will come up, and I now have a woman to talk to who is actually logical and reasonable, and that's really one of the main reasons you're here, because I have debated you enough to know that you know how to get the point.
So enough for admitting that In public.
Yeah. Admitting what? That you're smart?
And logical.
You are, but that's because you're married to a cop.
And reasonable.
Well, we got our first caller, and then we're going to get into Ravi. So I think that's enough. I'm kind of bored talking about Jen. What do you think, Eli?
Thank you. I'm bored too.
Okay, we're going to take a caller. We've got his name is Ryan from Pennsylvania. Ryan, are you there?
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm pretty good.
What are you?
Hi, Ryan.
You sound like you're in a wind tunnel. Can I help you?
Oh, I just.
That's a no.
Is this your husband?
Is this like we, just like talk about drugs, or is this just like a
Well, we were going to talk about the Rutgers University, but if you want to talk about drugs, we got a few minutes. Are you high? Are you high right now?
I mean, I just wanted to hear about the next conversation, or I don't know whatever you wanted to talk about, whatever the thing was.
You got it. But tell me seriously, how high are you right now?
No, I'm not. I don't do drugs or anything like that. But I mean, I'm just saying what the next.
Alrighty.
I think he wants to talk about the trial. Is what he's trying to say.
Okay. Yes. Well, I think it's time to move on. Yes. Yeah. That's Eli on the sound effects. That was awesome. Eli does not represent me. So, yes. All right. Well, we had to do that. I didn't want to go off and kiss your ass and talk about you, but we had to do it. It's our first show. So now are you ready to get into it?
Yeah. I'm ready.
All right. Well, for those of you who don't know, this is the purpose of our show today. Yesterday, the verdict for – we all know about the Rutgers suicide case with, I think his name is Clementi. It was this kid. The story goes, it was a kid in college who was in the closet about being gay. He invited a man to his room and engaged in gay sex, and his roommate.
Not gay sex.
Yeah, it was gay sex.
Kissing only is what they saw.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I should specify. This is what most people think. We're going to get into what actually happened, but this is when you talk to people on the street that don't know, and please call in again. The number is, especially if you're high, because we love it. The number is 323-417-6705. Please call in, because I have a feeling this show is going to get a little heated. So feel free to call in. But anyway, when I'm talking to people on the street, Jen, random people, you and I have done research on this. I do find there's a problem in America, which is the main point of today's show, where people hear something in the news or they read a headline on Yahoo News or their friend tweets something and it's the 3 or 4 word headline, and that's pretty much taken as fact. Nobody really goes out of their way to do the research. Nobody cross-checks stories. I think we put way too much hope on journalism, because journalism is basically dead. I mean, there's a few places you might be able to get a news source, but just in these last 2 days trying to research this, it's mostly sensationalized. It's mostly bloggers and even the news. Like I watched CNN, the talking head woman that was doing the report, she put an opinion spin on it, and she didn't even know what she was talking about. There were so many points she made where I was like, that's not what happened. And she's like, well, good to hear. So just because you're seeing it on CNN or Fox News or whatever, or you're reading it, do me a favor. If you're interested in it or you find yourself getting upset about this case, because this is a thing that does upset a lot of people, go take 20 goddamn minutes of your time and research it, because I guarantee you will look at a different perspective. Again, when I talk to people on the street about this, they tell you that Clementi was a kid who was in the closet and engaging in gay sex, and his roommate put a camera on and recorded him having sex and then put it on YouTube or did some sort of stream. The kid got so distraught that he was outed and his gay sex and was shown that he went and jumped off the George Washington Bridge. And be honest, Jen, if I asked you this a week ago, that's pretty close to what you would have thought, yes?
Yes, and if you do, when I did try to research it, there were a few that said gay sex, so yes.
Gotcha. But you think, it's not unusual to think that the kid was caught having sex and then killed himself. We talked about it on the air here before. I did about 15 minutes of it on a show. I couldn't really get into it too much because that was when we were having other fights. But this case has been around. Anyway, long story short, the verdict was handed down yesterday, and Darun Ravi, the straight roommate that put up the webcam was found guilty. There were 15 charges. He was found guilty on all 15. There were some sub-charges. I think you probably know more than I do, Jen, where he was found not guilty. But for the most part, he was found guilty of every single charge. And the charge that carries the most prison time is a charge of bias intimidation, which is under the hate crime law, which basically means he could serve up to 20 years in prison, most likely 10 years. Sentencing's in a few months. But basically that he sought out his roommate because he was gay, because he had a problem with him being gay, and intimidated him and bullied him solely because he was gay. And now he faces 10 years in prison. So
and deportation.
And deportation, yeah. He is a legal American citizen. He was born in India, I believe, but he lives here legally, and they are going to there's talk that they may deport him back to India. But needless to say, his life is pretty much changed forever. Mm-hmm. Even if they are talking about an appeal. We'll get into that a little bit later, but even if they did an appeal and they found him not guilty and everything, it's pretty much done for him. And obviously for Clemente, the kid that killed himself, it's fair to say his life's done too. Why are you laughing? I'm just making a point. So here he is, this kid, he's in jail. So when I even just did a few tweets about this, I did find that there were a few people upset at me because I said, yeah, I hope he's not guilty. This was before the verdict came down. And most people said, oh, my God, you've got to be joking. Or what do you mean not guilty? And in tweeting with them and conversing, I've also had these conversations in real time. I am amazed at the amount of people that want to see this kid fry and yet have very little knowledge of what happened. So what we're going to do today is we're going to just catch you up on the facts. And Jen and I have not really talked about this, so she may be trapping me in this beautiful Venus flytrap to make me look like a horrible monster. I have no idea. But we're just going to go ahead and talk about it. So anyway, here's the thing I want to say. Do your research and look in the facts, because here's one thing I always want to ask people about it. Are you aware, those of you listening, again, the number is 323-417-6705, that there never was a single recording of gay sex? That's my first question. So call in 323-417-6705. Don't go on the internet now and start researching so you can trap me. Just what you know, Ben Mercola or the other guys I fought with, that's my simple question. Were you, first of all, even aware that there never was a recording of gay sex? Second of all, so hopefully some people will call in, which they probably won't because I'm so awesome and they're so intimidated. Are you also aware that the law bias intimidation, which is one of the things he was found guilty of, which I went and looked it up, Jen, and it's basically a law about, targeting a specific group based on sexual orientation or ethnicity or whatever. It's a hate crime. But it's described for a bias-motivated violence, assault, injury, or murder on the basis of certain personal characteristics. So under definition of bias intimidation, it explains an actual physical attack of some sort.
Like all abuse. I mean, you can emotionally abuse somebody. You can psychologically abuse somebody. So, when it comes to children, women, how is that different from physical abuse? I mean, I'm sure they incorporate all those types of abuse in there.
Well, there is a thing, because I kept thinking, this law, again, I'm not saying that you can't abuse somebody or emotionally. What I'm saying is the actual thing he was sentenced for, as far as I found in my research, and again, I could be totally wrong, so if I'm wrong, call me. But the actual law that one of the things he was punished for by intimidation is based off physical violence. That's just the law. I mean, yeah, there's probably a million ways to attack somebody, but that's like basically saying if I insult you, I just got, I went to court and they found me guilty of murder 1 because I made fun of you. It's a similar thing. The actual law, and this is the way I understand it, is that it's based off physical violence, which again, he never did any sort of physical violence. The kid killed himself. He was not pushed off the bridge. He knowingly walked to the bridge and jumped. So there is a thing about hate speech, which is one of the hate crimes, but it's not really I don't know the word, but it's not really a law in the U.S. because it's protected under free speech. So just getting
look at Westboro, Baptist Church. They say the most hateful things possible to people about gays. How is that not bias intimidation right there.
I mean, you make an excellent point because that's how the law defines the difference. The bias motivation law is based off of physical attack or violence. So if there is a law about, like you said, the Westmore Baptist Church, if there was a law about it, it would be basically under hate speech, and hate speech is not against the law. Like you said, they can get up and say that, some guy can say homosexuals caused 9/11. What was his name, Pat Robertson or whatever? That is way worse than what Ravi did, in my opinion. But he's not.
Oh, they can say God killed your child because Oklahoma votes for gays.
Right.
What if someone like Charlie Manson, who influenced people with his voice to murder random actresses? I mean, is that considered just hate speech too?
No, he was actually found guilty of murder, which is insane because he actually never murdered a single person. Charlie Manson never lifted a knife and cut anybody. I think that's a whole other BS thing.
So I'm glad that
I'm glad that guy's locked up. Don't get me wrong, but again, like I said, all I'm looking for is the truth here. I mean, let's just find the truth, and we'll start from there. From that point on, we can talk about how to handle certain things, and like for instance, bullying. Let's define what bullying is, because today bullying means something different than it did 10 years ago. And I see a world gone mad where people are literally changing the definitions of words to suit a cause. And to me, that's insane. Let's stick to what the word actually means. Like I did this show on disease about depression. And Dr. Billy Gordon was on talking about how disease means you don't feel well. And I said, no, disease is a physical illness. It's an ailment that's physical. Let's stick with the definition. From that point, if you want to say depression is something else, fine. But if you start changing definitions of words, you start going down this slippery slope. And this is the heart of every one of my debates or issues, is we don't get to change the world to suit what we think is fair. You can make separate things up. You can make separate arguments for what you feel is fair. Fine, but you don't get to start changing what's already normal and natural. I don't understand it, and that's really, really what's happening. This thing with Ravi, and for all intents and purposes, he invaded his roommate's privacy. Okay.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree on that one.
And I doubt, and I don't think anyone wouldn't. I think that's the issue. So did he bias intimidate? Did he cause Clementi to jump off a bridge? No. I mean, it was already ruled that he had nothing to do with the suicide. So really what he did, for those of you, since no one's calling, I'll tell you, he put a webcam on because he was worried. This is his story. I'm not saying this is true, but this is according to Ravi, and I think it totally makes sense. His roommate, Clementi, is another question I'd ask you. A lot of people think he was outed by this video. He was already out of the closet. I don't know how many people know this. He came out of the closet before he even went to college. And he asked Ravi, his roommate, if he could have the room so that he could meet a dude. So he was totally
He asked for privacy right then, yes.
He asked for privacy, and he had told, I don't remember where I saw this, but Ravi knew that he was going to bring an adult stranger. This guy is referred to in the court transcripts under the initials MB. They're protecting his name.
The stranger was actually in the room and barely would speak to Ravi. He was
right.
So that's what made him uncomfortable, and supposedly that's why he turned on the camera, because that guy was awkward and weird on the bed, on his roommate's bed.
And I've seen reports of this MB guy being anywhere from 25 to 32. Now, Ravi and Clementi are freshmen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just put this in perspective for you guys. And again, I'm not here to say free Ravi. He's a perfect person. What he did was invasion of privacy. He was a dumb kid. He made some tweets, that were no more offensive than me laughing at Chaz Bono. I mean, if you guys are for this guy going to prison, then you're for me going to prison for 20 years for laughing at Chaz. That's pretty much as bad as it got. The guy had no problem with gays. But anyway, so you're in college. You're in there 2 weeks. You're, in life you get to choose your roommate, right? I mean, I'm 33 years old. If I want to live with someone, I can make that choice. When you're a freshman in college, you don't have a choice. You show up and they say, look, here's who you're living with. Now, after that point, you can request room changes, but for the most part, you're stuck with that roommate. So here you are, 2 17, 18-year-olds. You find out your roommate's gay, and he tells you he wants to have the room for a night. And you're not against gays. You have no problem with gays. You go, sure. He brings over an adult, okay? A lot of people aren't talking about this. Whether, even if he's 25, he's an adult, and he's off campus. The other guy in the room was not a student at Rutgers. It wasn't just some guy he picked up on the soccer team and they wanted to have some hot freshman sex. This was a guy he met on a gay dating site for hookups who lived near campus and was an adult. So here you are, Ravi. You don't get to choose your roommate. And he says, I'm bringing over someone I don't know. It's your room, too. It's half your room. Your stuff is there. You don't get storage facilities in college. Anyone that went to college, they don't give you a locker like high school. You share a room with somebody else. That's where all your personal belongings, all your cash, your wallet, everything is in there. So when your roommate brings someone home, usually in college, and I had it with my college roommate, you have certain rules. She's not allowed to go here, blah, blah, blah. So the issue is not that it was gay sex. The issue is it was an adult who lived off campus, who Clemente didn't know, who met on the internet. Now just think, if you're in college and it's two straight guys and your roommate says, hey, I've met, or Jen, it's probably better for you. You're in college. You're 18, you've got this chick roommate, she says, I want to bring someone over for the night. You guys are talking about, should we leave a hanger out so we know when you're having sex, blah, blah, blah. And she mentions that she took out an ad on Craigslist for hot sex with the stranger, and the guy's 32 years old, and she wants to bring him over. How are you feeling?
Super awkward. I mean,
right.
Very awkward. I'm very protective of my things. I don't know why, but scared people are going to steal my things, so I think I would be very uncomfortable and worried for her, to be honest.
Exactly, because again, it's like you're gonna bring people home to have sex with in college. I mean, that's why we go to college. Let's be honest. It's
you went to college?
Well, I didn't. You know me. I didn't get laid at all. Actually, I did get laid in college. I really did, believe it or not. But anyway, that's beside the point. So that was Jen, or was that Eli's sound effect?
No, that was not me.
Okay. So anyway, you're going to bring people home. Again, I think if Clemente had told Ravi, again, I met a guy on the water polo team, and, and they met, and he liked him, he would have no problem leaving the room. Again, he was on record saying he had no issue with gay people. He's not a homophobe by any stretch of the imagination. Yes, he did at some point say, oh, great, my roommate's gay. But that's the same as saying, oh, great, my roommate's a goth. Or my roommate's
He said, I saw him making out with a dude. Yay. Like, it seemed very low-key to me, what he said.
He had no issue. In fact, the story is when he found out, because nowadays you have Facebook and Twitter, so when he found out the name of his roommate, he went and started searching for him. Well, Clemente was private because he was a nerd. He was like a violin-playing nerd. And he had this fake persona. So at first, Ravi met a gay guy thinking it was his roommate. And they hit it off. They had coffee and they were talking. And he's like, hey, this guy's cool. He's gay, but he's cool. He's not like going to be like, oh, let's watch Glee or anything weird, right? So then he finds out his roommate is indeed not that guy. It's another gay guy. So he looks him up, and he's this nerd who plays violin, and he looks like, total nerd. And he's like, oh, great. He's that kind of gay kid. So no issue with gays. He knows who his roommate is ahead of time. He then goes to it. His roommate brings home a rat, a 32-year-old male he met on some hookup site. He's naturally worried about his stuff, and he said all this too. He meets the guy, as you said. He gets a weird, creepy vibe, and he decides, I'm going to put a camera on to make sure that, none of my stuff is stolen. And from what I understand, again, if I'm wrong, call in. But from what I understand, he put a camera on his bed, his own bed, and he put the camera on. He went in the next room. Some reports say he was there with just this one girl, although she turned state's evidence over and she got a deal, so she started saying all sorts of different things. But at the time, it was just him and his friend. They watched it. They saw the guy. They saw them kissing and turned it off. Okay? There was never a YouTube stream. There was never outing. And there was never gay sex recorded. They turned it off as soon as they saw him kissing. Then he tweets, great, just saw my roommate kissing a dude. Yay. That was as bad as it got, right? So then we go forward a day, and Clemente finds out about it because how stupid is Ravi? Everything you tweet, people can read, as I know from my Chaz Bono tweet. So he sees that he knows that he's gay. He tells him he asked for a room request, and long story short, 2 days pass, something like that. He then asks Ravi for the room again because he wants to hook up with this 32-year-old male he met on the site. Ravi says, fine. Clemente is fully aware that he was spied on the first time. It's out. He's already requested the room change. At the point he asked for the room from Ravi, the RA on the college dorm said, you know what? Why don't you just take another room to have your night in with your boyfriend or the guy you're meeting? Why don't you have your own room? And he said, no, I'm not worried about it. Now, some reports say the next night that Ravi turned his web camera off or Clemente closed the computer. Whatever happened, we won't know because Clemente's dead and he can't talk about it. They won't admit his suicide note into the court case, which is bizarre. I think that's really odd. And has the gay sex the next night in the room, no recording whatsoever. All Ravi does at this point is tweet a joke going, hey, if you guys want to have a viewing party, he's at it again. That was it. That is all that ever happened. Now, again, I'm not saying Ravi's a good dude. He doesn't have some problems. He's not a stupid kid. We've all said stupid shit on Twitter. We've all said something stupid. This kid now is facing 10 to 20 years in jail for this. And like I said at the beginning of the show, he is up for bias intimidation, saying there was a physical – he's basically under the murder, the accomplishment or whatever the corresponding murder one is for hate crimes. He's up for basically murder in so many words, and I find that bizarre. So anyway, so long story short, I tweet, hope he's not guilty. He's found guilty on everything. Everybody's celebrating. And I'm kind of in shock. I got to be honest. I'm kind of in shock because this is a story that all the stuff that we just laid out right now, most people don't even know these facts. If you talk to them on the street, they don't even know there was never a recording. They don't know Clemente was already out of the closet. They don't know that Clemente knew he was being spied on and asked for the room again to meet with the same guy. That's not even being reported.
Wow.
It's shocking. And what's really happening, here's where I'm going to get in trouble, Jen, and this is where you're going to have to protect me. I think a lot of it's this Ellen DeGeneres and this bullshit that a lot of people, Obama even spoke on, that there's a rise in teen suicides amongst gays, which there's no statistical evidence to support it. There's a rise in suicide amongst teens that could be easily correlated to just the rise in population. I could be wrong, but no stats I found support this. It's just something people keep saying. Just like they're saying that Clemente was outed on camera and killed himself because of it, which is not true. They're saying that teen suicide's on a rise. I have seen no study. Send me a study if you have it. You can send it to me in my email.
Likely teen suicide in general. Just happens that there are gays in the teen population as well. So maybe teens in general, maybe they were dealing with teens in general is causing a suicide increase. But
well, that's the thing. Go ahead, Eli.
Yeah, I just want to ask, after the second tweet, is that when he decided to jump off the George Washington Bridge? I mean, when did the suicide take place?
It took place 2 days later, I believe. So
2 days after the first tweet, I think.
I'm sorry. So the first tweet about great, the 2 days after the second time.
After the second.
Yeah, and he wrote a suicide note. The funny thing, he was missing for a little bit, and Ravi, who had no idea that he jumped off the George Washington Bridge, wrote an apology because he knew his roommate had asked for a room change and hadn't seen him. So he tweeted him. He actually texted him an apology, like, I'm so sorry this got out of hand. I have no problem with you being gay. Let me explain. I was worried about, in so many words, worried about my stuff. Let me explain. Well, they never found the kid. He
also said, I don't want your freshman year to be ruined because of a petty misunderstanding. Like, he did care about how Clemente felt. Sorry.
No, it's true. I mean, that's the truth. And so here what we have is essentially, here comes the bomb. We have a modern-day witch hunt is what it really is. This is like when you go back and you read about the Salem witch trials, and they're like, he's a witch, burn her, burn him, and they're crushing Richard Corey under rocks. That's what's happening. It's just happening on the other side. Now, when somebody's hurt, if somebody kills themselves, they have a problem. They have a long-standing problem. It's not because somebody made fun of them one time. So that's got to stop. So now what we're doing is when somebody kills himself or something happens, we're looking for someone to blame. And it's very easy because this kid was a homosexual and his roommate was saying, oh, great, my roommate's gay, and filmed him. It's very easy for that link to be made and understood that, oh, he was outed, and this Ravi is an he's basically homophobic, and they're making him a poster boy as a homophobic. It's very similar. Obviously, I'm not going to bring this back to me, but I'll tell you, those of you that follow me have seen it happen to me on Twitter, just from a simple thing where I've been called a misogynist, homophobic, you name it, I've been called it. And that's the way people are nowadays. Instead of taking the time to research or even listen to what you're fucking saying, they want to put an agenda and a movement on you. And here's Ellen DeGeneres, who talks about, this huge, gay issue in America, which I'm not saying there isn't. But look, Ellen's a fucking billionaire, okay? So if there's this real outright thing to get her crushed, I'm not seeing it. There's a small group of psychopaths that don't want her to go to JCPenney, but JCPenney found her first and said, we want you to be our voice. She's getting jobs. She's got 5 fucking shows on television. She's awesome. Of course, there's always idiots that are anti-gay. Ravi is not one of them.
There is no discrimination for gays. I wouldn't say no, like you said, but mostly no discrimination for gays in Hollywood. Like that, that is very accepted there. She has no problem.
Of course not. But again, but she represents a lot of people. Like JCPenney wanted to make her a spokesperson. And there was this Million Moms or whatever they're called that were against it because she was gay. But they don't represent everybody. That's not America. That's a section of morons. The rest of us don't care if Ellen is the voice of JCPenney for the most part. So I keep hearing about this big agenda, and then I see this kid Clementi who killed himself because he was out in teen suicide. I keep hearing like there's this war to have gay kids kill themselves, and Ellen was the one that talked about it, and yet there's not even a single stop and going, wait a minute, Ravi didn't even have a problem with gays. He never filmed them. He never even outed them. They don't even stop, so they've made an agenda, and it's a witch hunt. I'm sorry, I have a lot of gay followers. I'm not saying gays are bad, but this, and it's not all of you, but this is a witch hunt on the other side, okay? This is like the communist witch hunt. Nowadays, you're a bully, and it's not just gays. You're out there. You're like me with Chaz Bono is a perfect example. If you just sit there and say, look, you were born with 2 X chromosomes and an ovary, you're a woman, you're now a bully.
Right.
It's insane. So everybody's so quick to judge and make everybody this weird witch. It's a witch, burn him. And Ravi is basically being hung.
Well, and, I didn't hear about the mother and the rejection really until really researching it. And how much bigger is that, to have your own mom reject you when you come out of the closet to her? I wonder how she's feeling. It's really easy for her to probably turn it towards Ravi and make herself feel better that it was his fault that her son jumped off a bridge. But God help me if I ever turn my kid away when he comes to me with some big news like that.
God bless you, Jen. This is why Jen is now my co-host. Sorry, Eli. Not that you didn't do this. But
I want Eli to stay. We need Eli.
No, Eli's still here. He's on the sound effects, and he's still producing. And he still will talk. He's asked a couple great questions. But this is the thing. This is the point. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I want to say one last thing. Clementi came out of the closet to his parents. He goes to his mom and his dad, and by all reports, his dad's fine with it. Anyone that saw his dad yesterday knows that guy's all class. I mean, he could have got up there, and he didn't say anything about Ravi. He's like, look, if you have a problem with people, go to their face. Talk to him. And that's where you can get me upset at Ravi. If he had an issue with the guy bringing the adult home, he should have talked to Clementi about it. He should have been a man and said, look, I don't want this guy in here. You got to go somewhere else. He could have talked to him about it. Instead, he did this pussy thing where he put the spy camera on and he tweeted about it. Yeah, absolutely disgusting. And Clementi's dad was awesome in that moment. And by all accounts, when Clementi came out, his dad was fine with it. He's like, great, you're gay, I love you anyway. The mother was not. The mother is a cold fish from what all reports I've found, and she did not accept that he was gay. So this is 2 weeks before he goes to college. He comes out to his parents, and his mother doesn't accept him. And then he kills himself. Now, a rational person who's not looking to form some agenda or make somebody a poster boy or a witch hunt will go, I think the fact that his mother didn't accept him for being gay and is probably closer to related why he jumped off the George Washington Bridge than his roommate tweeting saw him kissing a dude.
Right, he didn't have time to process that. That was 2 days, he hadn't had time to let it spin in his head the way his mom rejecting him probably did.
Absolutely. I mean, just think about that. And that's the real thing with why I'm trying to talk to the gays now is if anyone should be on trial, if you want a poster boy to go after that mother. That's who you guys should be upset at because that's who, that's one of the hardest parts of coming out of the closet. I know it's hard. I didn't come out of the closet, but I imagine it's hard in real life. But I bet 80% of the fear of doing it is your parents. I bet that. I'm going to go on a limb and say that's probably true. And then if your parent, especially your mother, who's supposed to be the most unconditionally loving, the father's supposed to be like, wow, what if, you prove
your
it.
Role model. He's your role model.
The mom is supposed to be, you could shit in a bucket. I'll love you forever. And she won't. She looks right through you and says, I don't accept you. Why? Why are you not mad at her? Why is when she jumps off, and you know what? She's sitting there. I've seen this woman. She's sitting there eating Twinkies right now, hand over fist, and she's so happy that Ravi is potentially going to jail and biting a bullet. He jumped in front of the bullet for her because she didn't accept her own dang kid. So anyway, we got a caller. We got a couple callers. Finally,
Yay.
we upset you. Rick, you're on the air. Can you hear me?
Yes. Do you respect Howard Stern's penis?
I do respect Howard penis very much, although I do hear it's very small.
Yeah, he says it's small.
Yeah. Kristen is on the air from Illinois. Kristen, do you respect Howard Stern's penis? I must ask you that first.
Christine,
hi.
Don't ever call me that. That's not my name. I don't like it.
That's Mike's fault because the note is Christine. Good job, Mike. Christine.
Well, nobody else was calling.
I know.
And you guys have both. I agree with everything that you guys have said so far, but nobody has mentioned, and I said something along the lines of this to you yesterday, but it's kind of a scary thing, is it not? Like, can I go to jail now for something that I said? I mean, it just seems like it's getting too far,
I think that is a great question, Jen. I've been talking nonstop, so I'll let you answer.
And I mean, you kind of said something about the whole Chaz thing, and it's funny, but it's not, because what if Chaz were to go, do something crazy? Would you go to jail for that? I mean, it's sick. It's just crazy.
Well,
someone would try to, but it's the freedom of speech. I mean, I think if he hadn't done it, invaded his privacy in the first place, he did break a law right there instantly, and then from that, putting it online, not what happened, but what he was doing. I mean, he pretty much busted himself, and that is a form of, my husband, who's a cop, he believes that cyber bullies should be stopped. He believes that there are cyber bullies, but he's talking about high school students doing it to each other. But like I told him, if you don't take the picture of yourself naked, it's not going to get around the school,
Right.
So I think the invasion of privacy, because it happened without someone's permission, is what makes it a little more intimidating.
But what law did he break? Because like you said, from what I understand, your husband's a cop. He says you're allowed to film in your own home, right?
Without sound, because, yes, it's your home. Outside of the home, you can film with audio. It's given that you do not have privacy outside of your home. Hello, celebrities, just so you know that.
Understood. So this is a dorm room, so technically it could be considered his residence, his home, right?
You're expected
so
to
was
have
there sound on this video that didn't even get seen anyways?
Well, there probably was sound because it was a webcam. I don't know, but I'm not sure it's even illegal
that's
to film
a good question then.
That's my question.
That's part of the legalities of it, then that's a pretty damn good question.
And again, I said,
New Jersey might have different laws than California too.
Well, they're crazy in Jersey
because
after this in New Jersey, they've made a new law that so nobody feels uncomfortable going to college, that they can now have co-eds sharing dorm rooms. So men and women, transgenders, you name it. There's no more boy, girl, because they don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. So your daughters and your sons that are going to college may be roomed with a member of the opposite sex. I don't know how you feel about that. Maybe you're cool with it. I think that's ridiculous. I think that's insane. I could not imagine the horror of a poor girl that would have to share a room with me in college. It was disgusting.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Just disgusting. I used to chew chewing tobacco and play baseball in the room, and I would knock over the chewing tobacco cups so there'd be like dried spit on the floor. What girl wants to live with that?
Would you have acted differently if you had a girl as a roommate, though?
I probably would have constantly tried to hump her, and she would have been...
You would not have been disgusting, though. You just would have been under the covers with your little hand.
No, let's be honest. If I'm going to share a room with a girl, there's certain expectations I'm going to have. She's going to see me nude. She's probably going to see she's probably going to see the penis dance, because every girl deserves to see the penis dance. But
yeah,
anyway,
I would not want to share a room with the opposite sex or anyone interested in having sex with me. So even if it was a lesbian, so that that kills the same sex too. Like I would feel uncomfortable that they're checking me out all the time, and one day are gonna, who knows, put a move on. I don't want to have that kind of pressure in my place where I relax. Not that I've been hit on by lesbians. I've kissed lesbians. I'm not scared of lesbians. I just wouldn't want to have that kind of pressure. I'd want to kick back in my room.
Well, you have 2 boys, right?
I do.
Like he said, how would you feel if that's what's going on when our kids grow up and go to college? Because you have boys, I have girls.
I mean, you'd probably have more of a concern than me, but I'd still be scared they're going to get someone pregnant easily. They're going to get an STD easier because it's just going to be more access. They still have sex, but to have the same or opposite sex around all the time, it's just going to be more sex.
I think it leads to that. I mean, again, I'm sure that they're not going to put somebody in a room with opposite sex without asking their permission. I'm sure there'll be, a check box here, but still, it's just bizarre. I mean,
but I do understand why a straight guy doesn't want a room with a gay guy, even though that sounds like you're discriminating. It's because the gay guy is going to get horny for the straight guy if he's hot.
Exactly.
I can understand the discomfort there, and it's not about gayness. It's about not wanting to have to worry what you're wearing, when you're in your own house.
That is the
all right, hold up.
All right, here comes Mike. Mike is gay, for the record.
Okay, so
I would room with a gay guy though as a girl.
Yeah, well that's
normally
different.
I keep my mouth shut about these things, but here's I went to college and I'm gay and I had 2 straight roommates. We lived together for 3 years, and there was never any issue. Like, we actually hung out. Like, we became really good friends. Like, I went to the straight bars. I drank beer. I played beer pong.
They didn't have an issue with you being gay. Were you out of the closet at the time?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, so absolutely.
I mean, they knew. You told them ahead of time you were openly gay and they were fine with it, or you told them when you got there?
I mean, we talked a little bit. Like, here's my thing with it. I never openly I don't feel like it's anyone's business for me to just shout things from the rooftop. I mean, because like most people, I don't want to, because there is such a weird stigma amongst gays. I'll completely own up to that, like there is, and I can't stand most gays. You're coming to me, but I didn't openly tell them. Like, my one roommate, we talked about it after we started living together, and he was like, "Well, dude, I saw your Facebook photo, so I pretty much figured it out."
Right.
Like, but I mean, we actually it was a good learning experience for both of us, because you could ask him to this day, and he was like, if you had asked me when I started college if I was ever going to be able to be okay with having a gay roommate and we would actually become, like, good friends and hang out and do stuff, he's like, I would have been like, no. He's like, you are such this out-of-the-mold person. He's like, and I'm so glad I didn't make any, like, judgments ahead of time.
Well, let me tell you, that's a great story.
Too, let me tell you what.
Mike, that's cool. Like, I love hearing stories like that. Like, oh, God, that gives me hope for humanity. But for every one of those stories, there's a story like what happened at Rutgers. So
right.
it is an issue. It's like, yeah, you may have been cool, and you might have got these great open-minded guys, but I don't think it's unusual for someone to have an issue if they say, look, you're going to share a room with a gay guy. Just like, again, I want to make this point earlier. If I went to college, my roommate in college was studying to be an FBI agent and was a jock. And at this time, I had hair down to my shoulders. I was smoking pot every day. I was like a hippie. And I remember thinking, oh, man, I got to sit in a friggin' room with a jock. And I know the day I came to school, he looked me up and down. And we talked about it later. And he looked me up and down and goes, oh, man, I got to share a room with a friggin' stoned-out hippie. I'm studying criminal law. We ended up being friends. And I get that that's part of college is you mix different people and move it. But the question here is not does it work or doesn't it? The question is it unusual for somebody to feel uncomfortable about being put in a room sharing space with someone who's a completely different, from a different side of the tracks, so to speak? I don't think
and
that's...
And is them expressing that intimidation, basically. You know, that's all he did was express how he felt about it on Twitter. Right. And now he's intimidated him to the point of jumping off a bridge.
Yeah, and Mike, when you and Jeff asked me to do the show, my first thought was, great, now I got to do radio with gay guys.
Oh, you did?
No, I'm kidding.
Like, shit,
no,
Jake.
well, I sort of have my own theory with this whole Rutgers thing.
Yeah.
Because, now that I sat back and I listened to everything that, Jake, you put out there about this guy, this 32-year-old or whatever, someone older coming into this picture. Right. And, I think back to myself when I was that age. I'm just wondering if something didn't go down in that room when he was trying to hook up with this guy, and you're in a very fragile emotional state, especially if he wasn't out.
Well, he was, but just
he didn't
recently.
necessarily, or he was. I don't even know. But
no, he was out.
I wonder if something
he was out.
got said with this old guy, and that just threw him off, and that's what caused him to jump off the bridge.
It's possible too. The thing is, the real truth is, nobody knows why Clemente killed himself. And I've already expressed my theories that I think it was his mother. But again, that's just my opinion. There's no fact.
But if he wrote a suicide note, how come that has never been submitted as evidence?
That's such a great question, and that's where I think
probably because he blames it all on his mother, and they want to charge the other kid for it.
When he wasn't on trial for killing.
But that would disclose the reason to a suicide. Any suicide note would explain that reason alone, I would think.
You would hope, but yeah, I find it odd that it was not admissible. And here's the last thing, because we only got a few minutes left. I do want to say is, this is the weirdest part for me in this court case. It was already ruled, just so everybody knows, that there was no link to the invasion of privacy webcam by Ravi and the suicide. It's already ruled in a court of law that there was no link. So basically, what's happening is, here's two things. One thing is weird. The jury was told that Clemente did commit suicide 2 days after this, which I think is jury tampering. You're not allowed to do that. The suicide note's not allowed in the courtroom, but yet you can tell the jury this kid killed himself. What's to say that didn't sway their opinion one way or another?
They were exposed to news during jury selection.
That's
like
unheard of.
the TV next to them.
That's unheard of. And, everyone remembers from the OJ, you sequester your jury. They're not allowed to watch news. They're not allowed to have an opinion. And you want to find jurors that have never heard of this case before, because the point of this judicial system is that a jury of your peers that only study what is admissible in court. They base a decision off what is evidence or not. And if it's deemed inadmissible, you're not allowed to talk about it. It's stricken from the jury record. So why was the jury told that Clemente killed himself? If it was already ruled, now again, if it was ruled that the webcam led to a suicide, totally fine. Prosecution's going to say, yeah, look, he killed himself. But it was ruled that there was no link. So why are they told? I mean, that is a misstep of giant proportions and odd to me. You couple that with the suicide note not being admissible. It's very strange. It's very, very strange to me. And I'm lost for words, because he better get a mistrial, and he's going to file for appeal. He better get an appeal off that alone. I mean, seriously, how do you tell a jury that the kid killed himself and then tell him his suicide's not leaked to this case? How do you do that?
I think for the spying alone, he should be deported. No spies in America.
I mean, that's a good point. Here's what I want to say for this, because I imagine we're going to get crazy Twitter feeds. Ravi should have been expelled from Rutgers. Absolutely. And here's the last thing I want to say. If Clemente didn't kill himself, this wouldn't even have gone on trial. So that's the other thing you got to remember. This wouldn't even be a court case. We wouldn't even be talking about it if the kid didn't kill himself, yet it's ruled that there was no link. Really what you have is you have two idiots, one idiot filming his roommate in college. That's it. He filmed him. If there's no suicide, say the suicide never happened, that's something Rutgers would handle. That's something Rutgers would go, look, we're going to change your room, and at worst, Robbie, you putting a webcam, you're out of the school. You're expelled. That's as far as it should have gone. Because he killed himself and because he was gay, and Ellen and everyone freaking out and driving the steamroll witch hunt to get Ravi is why it went as far as it did. And yet they still ruled there was no link to the suicide. But
the gay and lesbian organizations still aren't happy with the 15 guilty counts. They're not happy with some of the sub-counts of not guilty.
That makes me sick. Again, I hate morons. I don't care what you are. I am sick by those current people that do not think this is enough. For a joke tweet and an invasion of privacy, which, again, he should have been expelled, maybe even deported if you want to go that far. That's all arguable. He should not be facing 20 years for bias intimidation of a physical assault act. He should not be on trial for physically hurting somebody that killed themselves. It's insane. And then they're not happy with that because the truth is those women or men and women, those gays you're talking about that aren't happy, those people, they want to make an example out of Ravi. Darun Ravi is being made an example of. Again, he's not perfect. What he did was wrong on a lot of levels, but to the point that it's become, he is being made an example of as a poster boy for this agenda, and it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. I don't know how anyone could feel good about this. I know a lot of people are happy. So anyway, I'm feeling, I don't know if you're feeling it, Jen. We got about a minute and a half. I'm feeling I had to mute Christine because I sound like a wind tunnel. Or I guess that was you.
It's not my wind tunnel.
I'm just preparing for the onslaught that I'm going to get for the next week. I just have to emotionally prepare for it because I know what I've said was clear, but I already can tell you right now in the next 72 hours it's going to be twisted that I've said gays are on a witch hunt to destroy America. That's what's going to be happening. I'm going to be called homophobic and that I support murder. That's what's going to happen.
I'm just going to call you a homo.
That's fine. That's totally fair. I can handle it. I just don't understand how, just because you're gay and you're on the liberal side and you're on a side that's caring doesn't mean you're right. Okay?
Yeah, he killed himself for many reasons. Coming out to his mom and her rejecting him was likely a big one, but he, like I said, we all have a million reasons to have killed ourselves in our lifetime, I'm sure, but we don't. There's something in his head or his inner self, his inner strength that he didn't have.
Well, that's the truth. Yeah, I mean, really, even if I were in the closet and somebody caught me having gay sex right now and tweeted it after this show and showed video of my hideous, disgusting, pimply body having hot gay sex, I still would not kill myself. I wouldn't do it. I'd be probably embarrassed that I lied, blah, blah, blah. But I would not kill myself. You don't.
What about the secret shit stain? I want to hear about the secret shit stain.
Doesn't bug me. The point is, nothing would make me kill myself off something somebody accused or said, even if it was true. So
right.
In order to get to that point where you're walking into the George Washington Bridge, you got to have something else going on. That's what I'm going to say. So, Jen, great first show. Eli, that was awesome.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
That was tough. All right, I'll see it. Eli, can you play us out on our Jake Pentland closing song? Because you're now. Oh,
this is
boo.
so bad for your ego.
Boo. Well, I just been here. I'll do it. All right. There we go. Thank you, everybody. God, that was difficult. I cannot wait. I'm gonna be dead this time tomorrow, Jen.
I can't wait to read.
All right. I'll see you guys later.
Bye.